Pig gets lost. This is Apple Tree Farm. This is Mrs. Boot, the farmer. She has 2 children called Poppy and Sam and a dog called Rusty.
Woof, woof, woof.
Mrs. Boot has 6 pigs. There is a mother pig and 5 baby pigs. The smallest pig is called Curly. They live in a pen. Mrs. Boot feeds the pigs every morning. She takes them 2 big buckets of food. But where is Curly? He is not in the pen. She calls Poppy and Sam. Curly's gone, she said. I need your help to find him. Where are you, Curly? Poppy and Sam call to Curly. Let's look in the hen run, says Mrs. Boot. But Curly is not there. There he is, in the barn. He's in the barn, says Sam. I can just see his curly tail. They all run to the barn to catch Curly. That's not Curly. It's only an old piece of rope, says Mrs. Boot. Not Curly's tail. Where can he be, says Poppy. Maybe he's eating the cow's food.
No.
But Curly is not with the cows. Don't worry, says Mrs. Boot. We'll find him soon. We'll soon find him. Perhaps he's in the garden. They look for Curly in the garden, but he is not there. We'll never find him, says Sam. Why is Rusty barking?
Woof, 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 woof.
Rusty is standing by a ditch. He barks and barks.
Woof, woof, woof.
He's trying to tell us something, says Poppy.
Woof.
Rusty has found Curly. They all look in the ditch. Curly has slipped down into the mud and can't climb out. We'll have to lift him out. I'll get into the ditch, said Mrs. Boot. I'm coming too, said Poppy. And me, says Sam. Curly is very muddy. Mrs. Boot picks Curly up, but he struggles. Then he slips back into the mud with a splash. Now everyone is very muddy.
Oh no.
Sam tries to catch Curly, but he falls into the mud. Mrs. Boot grabs Curly and climbs out of the ditch. They all climb out of the ditch. We'll all need a good bath, says Mrs. Boot. Rusty found Curly. Clever dog, says Sam.
Woof, woof, woof.
The Hungry Donkey. This is Apple Tree Farm. This is Mrs. Boot, the farmer. She has 2 children called Poppy and Sam and a dog called Rusty.
Woof, woof.
There is a donkey on the farm. The donkey is called Ears. She lives in a field with lots of grass, but she is always hungry. Ears the donkey is going out. Poppy and Sam catch Ears to take her to the farmyard. Today is the day of the show. Ears has a little cart. They brush her coat, comb her tail and clean her feet. Mrs. Boot puts her into her little cart. Off they go to the show. Poppy and Sam climb up into the little cart. They all go down the lane to the showground. You stay here, Ears. At the showground, Mrs. Boot ties Ears to a fence. Stay here, we'll be back soon, she says. Ears gets free. Ears is hungry and bored with nothing to do. She pulls and pulls on the rope until she is free. Ears looks for food. Ears trots across the field to the show ring. She sees a bunch of flowers and some fruit. Is it a bunch of flowers and some fruit?
Oh yeah.
Is it though? That looks good to eat. She takes a big bite, but the flowers do not taste very nice. A lady screams and Ears is frightened. They weren't flowers, they weren't real flowers, were they? They were on the lady's hat.
Oh no.
Ears runs away. Mrs. Boot, Poppy and Sam and the lady run after her and catch her. Naughty donkey, says Sam. I'm sorry, Mrs. Boot says to the lady. Would you like to take Ears into the best donkey competition? Ears is very good now. The lady is called Mrs. Rose. She climbs into the cart. Come on, she says, and shakes the reins. Ears pulls the cart into the show ring. She trots in front of the judges. She stops and goes when Mrs. Rose tells her. Ears wins a prize. Well done, said the judge, giving her a rosette. He gives Mrs. Rose a prize too. It is a hat. It's time to go home. Mrs. Rose waves goodbye. That was such fun, she says. Ears trots home. She has a new hat too. So Mrs. Rose gave Ears her old hat that was all chewed up and eaten because she got a nice new one. So Ears got a manky old hat as a present.
Ears wins a prize.
Yeah, Ears won a prize as well. Okay. Scarecrow's secret. This is Apple Tree Farm. This is Mrs. Boot the farmer. She has 2 children called Poppy and Sam and a dog called Rusty. Mr. Boot is working in the barn. What are you doing, Dad? Asks Sam. I'm tying lots of straw onto these poles, says Mr. Boot. What is it? You'll soon see, says Mr. Boot. Go and get my old coat from the shed, please. Bring my old hat too. It's going to be a scarecrow. Poppy and Sam come back with the coat and hat. Then they help Mr. Boot put them on the scarecrow. He's just like a nice old man. I've got some old gloves for him, says Sam. Let's call him Mr. Straw, says Poppy. He's finished now. Help me carry him, please, Poppy, says Mr. Boot. You bring the spade, Sam. They all go to the cornfield. Mr. Boot digs a hole in the field. Then he pushes in the pole so that Mr. Straw stands up. He does look real. I'm sure Mr. Straw will scare off all the birds, says Sam, especially the crows, says Poppy. Mr. Straw is doing a good job. Every day, Mr. Boot, Poppy and Sam look at Mr. Straw. There are no birds in the cornfield because all the birds think it's a real person. They're too scared to go in the cornfield. There's Farmer Dre's scarecrow. He's no good at all, said Sam. The birds are eating all the corn and standing on the scarecrow.
No.
They know that's not a real person, you see. Why is Mr. Straw so good? Sometimes he looks as if he's moving, says Poppy. His coat goes up and down. It's very odd. Let's go and look. Let's creep up very quietly, says Sam, and they tiptoe across the cornfield to look at Mr. Straw. There's something inside his coat. It's moving, says Poppy, and it's making a funny noise. What is it? Says Sam. It's our cat and her kittens. Carefully they open the coat. There is Whiskers, the cat, and 2 baby kittens hiding in the straw. So that's the Scarecrow's secret. Whiskers is helping Mr. Straw to frighten off the birds, says Poppy. Clever Mr. Straw, says Sam. Tractor in trouble. This is Apple Tree Farm. This is Mrs. Boot the farmer. She has 2 children called Poppy and Sam and a dog called Rusty.
Woof, woof,
Ted
woof.
works on the farm. He helps Mrs. Boot. Ted looks after the tractor and all the farm machines. Today it is very windy. The wind is blowing in the trees and it is very cold. Poppy and Sam play in the barn. Where are you going, Ted? Ted is driving the tractor out of the yard. I'm just going to see if the sheep are all right, he says. Ted stops the tractor by the gate. He goes into the sheep field. He nails down the roof of the sheep shed to make it safe. Poppy and Sam hear a terrible crash. What's that? Says Sam. I don't know. Let's go and look, says Poppy. They run down the field. A tree has blown down. It's coming down on Ted's tractor, says Poppy.
Oh no!
Come on, we must help him, says Sam. What are you going to do, Ted? Poor Ted is very upset. The tree has scratched his new tractor. He can't even get into the cab. Ask Farmer Dre to help. I think I can see him on the hill, says Ted. Poppy and Sam run to ask him. Soon Farmer Dre comes with his horse. Farmer Dre has a big, gentle cart horse called Dolly. They have come to help Ted. I'll cut up the tree first. Farmer Dre starts up his chainsaw. Then he cuts off all the branches which have fallen on the tractor. Dolly starts to work. Farmer Dre ties 2 ropes to Dolly's harness. Ted ties the other ends to the big branches. Dolly pulls and pulls. She works hard until all the branches are off the tractor. Well done, Dolly, says Farmer Dre. Ted climbs up into the cab. Thank you very much, Farmer Dre and Dolly, he says. They all go back to the farmyard. The tractor looks a little messy. Ted finds a brush and paints over all of the scratches. It will soon be as good as new, he says.
It's
4, isn't it?
Yeah.
The end.
Right, 4 more to go for part 3.
Do them tomorrow.